the truth about extraterrestrial aliens lost in the Library of Alexandria fire. We know that the Library of Alexandria was in Alexandria, Egypt, the city established by Alexander the Great, 330 BC. And if you look at the videos, a few videos back, how I found the lost continent of Atlantis by Schliemann's grandson, he explains how Atlanteans were very advanced. They had space flight. They even had spread their settlements throughout the world and had very high technology. That's about 3 or 4 videos behind this one. But we know that even Alexander the Great took his army into the Taklamakan desert, where supposedly he had encounters with extraterrestrials and UFOs. And in that campaign, he lost over 10,000 soldiers, which is not a small amount. Now, when Alexander the Great set about conquering the known world, he created cities in the wake of his conquests, everywhere he went. The most well-known of these is Alexandria in Egypt, in the delta of the area of Cairo, although he did find something around 17 different cities bearing his name, Alexandria. There's one specific Alexandria that stood out among its peers, located in Egypt. This Alexandria was host to the Library of Alexandria, a veritable encyclopedia of the entirety of the world's knowledge at the time, but then it was burnt. It had a fire. Now, while the Library of Alexandria survived several destructive forces throughout its existence, the most destructive was due to Julius Caesar. As an accidental casualty of war, the library suffered extensive damage during the Ptolemaic siege 48 BC. The library continued to operate afterwards, and while the extent to which it was destroyed is uncertain, there were undoubtedly countless irreplaceable texts that were lost. The nature of the Library of Alexandria was meant to compile all of the world's knowledge. With every new ship that came into port, their books on board were confiscated, copied, and then the copies returned to the original owners. Doing so created the world's largest, greatest source of knowledge and learning. This may have included knowledge about aliens. We have been establishing historical documentation for years. Flying saucers in the sky, blinking lights, and other strange phenomena have been well documented for centuries. If we've been experiencing inexplicable phenomena in our modern day and age, then there's a chance that the Library of Alexandria contained the truth about these ancient aliens. The truth, of course, can come in a variety of forms. There's a long-standing belief that the ancient Egyptians received otherworldly guidance when establishing their civilization. Okay, so the 3 or 4 in the How I Found Lost Continent of Atlantis, in there it explains how the Atlanteans from Atlantis spread into Egypt. In a matter of fact, Thoth, the Atlantean, escaped to Egypt because he fell in love with the king of Atlantis, King Kronos. He fell in love with his daughter and had to escape. I guess it was a type of elopement into Egypt, where he established a civilization there. So while we have no concrete surviving evidence of that, the Library of Alexandria may have hosted that knowledge. There's more than a direct intervention that could theoretically inform us about the existence of aliens, eyewitness accounts, records, encounters, all of which could have been stored in the library for future generations to learn from. However, the possibility of this knowledge now surviving is unlikely due to the library's burning. There are accounts still living. Alexandria, while holding the greatest store of the world's knowledge, did not hold all its copies. There were too many civilizations at the time to fail to store our history. Whether or not Alexandria lost a significant portion of what we could perceive as a historical record of alien contact, we still have other sources to pull from. Number 1, ancient Greek historian Plutarch. Plutarch was a Greek historian and biographer who lived between 46 and 120 AD. He later became a Roman citizen, adopting the name Lucius Metrius Plutarchus. While his duties and his life varied, his most notable works involved the detailing of various Roman emperors. These Roman figures lived long before his time, but his works are regarded by historians as reliable historical sources. Most of Plutarch's works have been lost to time. Those that have survived to this day are, in the majority, only fragments of his work, and only a few are complete. However, there's important information to be derived from the work that we do still have from him. One of the biographies Plutarch worked on was centered around a man named Lucullus. He was a politician who served both in the government and in the military. What's important here is not the man himself, but rather an event that occurred that Plutarch recorded in the biography. The story goes that Lucullus was leading an army against Mithridates, the king of Pontus. That's an area around the Black Sea area. This had been a long ongoing conflict between the Romans and Mithridates, with Lucullus facing him in the Third Mithridatic War. The event in question took place before a battle with Mithridates, before the conflict began. The account of the extraterrestrial strikes many similar beat to modern recounts. As Lucullus marched to battle, the sky evidently opened up to welcome the coming object. It was described as appearing, quote, a rapidly descending object, resembling a flame which appeared like a vase in shape and like a glowing annealed metal in color, end quote. This description is taken directly from Plutarch's biography of Lucullus. It needs to be noted that Plutarch lived long after any of these Romans lived. However, he also lived long enough after the initial burning of the Library of Alexandria. Plutarch was renowned for his research, including quotations and sources in each of the lives he wrote. Essentially, since he learned of this alien event that Lucullus experienced, it's probable that other documentation of similar events lived as well. And number 2, Alexander the Great, 330 BC. There's no better source than the man who founded Alexandria himself. Alexander the Great is regarded as one of humanity's greatest military leaders. According to historical records, Alexander was recorded to have experienced similar phenomena that could easily be described as extraterrestrial and UFO. The modern take on the tale has been established by Frank Edwards, written in 1959. According to the story, while Alexander the Great was leading a siege on Tyre, that's an island off Lebanon, in the coast into the Mediterranean Sea. He was leading a siege on Tyre. He received assistance by great silver shields in the sky, quote unquote. The extent of the UFO's description ends here, beyond there being 3 of them flying in a triangular formation. The UFOs then allegedly fired a beam into Tyre's walls, destroying them and allowing Alexander's army entrance into the city and conquering it. These shields have reappeared in other campaigns that Alexander led as well. While in combat against the Indian army, these same shields were reported to have appeared above the river they were fighting over. Their swooping down startled the steeds of both armies, the horses that is, and after Alexander the Great won the battle, he decided against pressing on into Indian territory. However, there are issues to be taken into account with this account of an extraterrestrial presence. While the myth of aliens assisting Alexander in his conquests has gained popularity, the extent of its validity goes on further than Edwards. He did not cite any sources when writing about the experience, and the histories chronicling Alexander's exploits have been lost. While there's a chance that there are histories detailing alien presences in Alexander the Great's campaigns, as of now there are no reputable sources to reliably agree on these events occurring. If Frank Edwards secretly had documents detailing the stories, they were never released. Whether or not the truth behind aliens aiding Alexander the Great would likely have been found in the Library of Alexandria. And then we have number 3, Titus Livius Patavinus. Titus Livius Patavinus, colloquially known as Livy, is another well-known Roman historian. While he also lived post-Alexandria burning, any Roman documents are regarded as historically significant due to their extensive practices for reliable documentation. Livy himself is well regarded, earning him more than a grain of salt when it comes to his historical recounting. Livy's books of history, of which he wrote many, account for much of the established Roman history recorded. However, the passages were interesting in regards an account of phantom ships in the sky, quote unquote. While the record itself appears to be vague, the meteorological event itself is significant. Could this have been an account of visiting extraterrestrials? There's no certainty, and experts in UFO research contemplate that this experience was more figurative than literal. However, the description itself seems oddly geared towards a specific physical description, not unlike what we've heard of in our modern day. It's even within the realms of similarity with Plutarch's own description. Regardless, the excerpt describes an event taking place in 218 BC, well within the time frame of Alexander's existence. Surviving accounts kept by successors to historical knowledge maintain unexplained phenomena linked to what may be extraterrestrial intervention prior to Alexandria's burning. There's no telling what other bodies of work written with the same intent may have been lost in that fire. This is on Humans Are Free. I'll leave a link below for you. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.